Welcome, one and all, to Liberty After Dark live stream. We hope that you enjoy the show and will engage in the conversation along with us. So, without further ado, here's your host, Christian Moore.
What is up, ladies and gentlefish? Let me finish all of this stuff that should have been done earlier. It has been a bit of a crazy morning, honestly. When I set everything up and was doing all my test videos and everything before the stream, no internet issues, which is good. But instead, I had massive camera issues. And it seems to be doing fine right now. I hope that continues. Because I really don't want to buy a new camera. But it was bad. And I had to do some tweaking and whatnot to... Nope, that's the wrong... Cancel. I messed that up. Oh well. Give me a second. Oh, that was easy. It was a lot easier second time. I got up early today too to try to make sure that I got this stuff taken care of before the show. And all this taught me was just don't wake up earlier. It's already early enough for me, especially since I've been working nights for forever. So, yeah, lesson learned though. If anybody's in the chat, just go ahead and type something so that I know it works. And if nobody's here, then that's fine. We can go ahead and we'll start getting started in just a few minutes. Yeah. Chat should be enabled now. So if somebody wants to go in there and type that or type a message or something just so that I can see that it works, it should be though. It should be operational. But yeah, we're about 20 something minutes late. Mostly because of the camera issues. And I'm keeping an eye on me. Normally I don't, but... Oh, Liberty Late Night's here. What's up, my dude? I'm keeping an eye on me because I was doing testing, normal, just make sure all my scenes work because sometimes they break overnight for whatever reason. And I couldn't help but notice that on my screen here, just my camera part, nothing else, was flickering like crazy. And I mean, it seems to be working now. So whatever, I'll take it. I can roll with that. I don't have any issues rolling with that. So we'll put this over here. We will take this away. Also, yeah, looks like chat's working. That's good. I wanted to open up some stuff today, but then I got sidetracked by trying to, run a show without a flickery camera. So let me go ahead and open some things up. How's y'all's day going? How's it going? How's your night? Should be pretty swell. Did I really stab myself? I did. Oh, I finished wrapping the paracord around my Pokeboy. It's not very even, I'll be honest. I could have done a better job if I'd slowed down. But that still took me like 20 minutes. But yeah, I like it. Oh, it did the flicker. I saw it. I need to figure out what's up with that. But for now, it's okay. We can, we'll make it work. Oh, wow. Okay, some really interesting stuff has happened very recently. I'm going to add this stuff to the news segment. I just need to kind of read through it real quick. It's about Hong Kong, so Toronto marched in support. Was prevented from going forward. Wow. Holy shit, this is actually pretty crazy. Sorry, I don't know if anybody's even here, but I was just like reading this, and that's some insane stuff. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You know what one of my favorite news sites has become? MSN News. It's just a giant news conglomerate. Like they don't write really anything. I think they have a couple pieces, but it's yeah, it's just part of it takes all of the top news stories from all the websites. It gives you a really easy way of picking everything up. So, ooh, that sounds like a controversial story right there. Sorry, all this new stuff came out in just like the last hour. Like some of this stuff's pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm still getting camera flickering. That's very unfortunate, man. I don't know what caused this between the last show and this show, but it sucks. I mean, it was doing it bad earlier. Like, see that? Can you guys see that? I'm pretty sure you can. Because you should be able to see whatever I can see. I don't know. Let me know. Let me know if it's just me, like if it's only showing up on my end. We're about to get rolling though, so once once I finish up looking at this, we're about to get moving, as they say, shaking and grooving. Um, do do do. Sorry. We can go ahead and talk about this too. I didn't have this news story up. I've got a couple news stories up now. Okay, I'm gonna inhale a little bit. I'm going to breathe, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get the ball rolling. And I don't know how long today's show is going to be. We're pretty much just going to be talking about news. A couple of the stories you guys already know everything about. A couple of them, maybe not. So I think some of them are interesting. And today's just going to be a big news show, basically. I don't have any major topics. I'm working on something for the next show. We'll see how it pans out. I need to do some work on some presentation stuff for it. But no spoilers this time. Yeah, hold on. Before I do all this. Cool. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Christian with Liberty After Dark, and today we are talking about the news. I hope you guys have all had a fantastic day up to this point, whether you just woke up in the morning and decided to turn this on, or whether you're here live in the chat audience. So we don't have any like grand, over the top topics to go over today. No nap, no nothing like that. So that's totally fine. However, what I will say, so we have quite a few different news stories to go over. So we're gonna sort of pseudo rapid fire through some news stuff. Oh hey, what's up, man? we're going to rapid fire through some news topics. And if we get to anything in the chat that you feel like spending a little bit more time on, you can go ahead and bring it up. But this is really just going to kind of be like a refresher week. What's been happening? Why is that important? And we're going to be going over some things people think should take more time. And we're going to be going more into some lighter things that people may not have normally put so much time into. But you'll see what I mean as we keep going. First things first, I feel like I need to make some kind of commentary on Jeffrey Epstein. I've been getting emails, especially since I wasn't able to do the show in the midweek. I've been getting emails about like, oh, whoa, did you see this? Yes, I've seen it. I've read pretty much everything, and I'll be honest with you. There isn't much for me to say that hasn't already been said, and that's not as like a cop out, like you don't want to make it. No, and I don't care about that. My issue is that I don't, there's a conspiracy theory side of me that really just wants to run crazy with this idea that like and make a lot of assumptions that make sense, but I don't have anything to support it with. So something like Epstein was murdered makes sense. I don't have anything to corroborate that. Something like all the people who went to his island and all that stuff. Yeah, I'll get to the Portland riots later. The jet, all that. These are all things that everybody has pretty much heard about by this point if you care at all about this kind of stuff. And I really don't have anything to add. And that may disappoint some people, but I don't think that there are plenty of people who are making the speculations, plenty of people driving up the drums, and not that I care about Epstein. I legitimately think deep down that not only was he a terrible human being who molested children, that he facilitated a lot of people doing so. I don't know who. I don't know what's real. I can't know what's real, honestly. I'm not close enough to all of this to know what's real, what's fake, what's a fabrication. So, yeah. Exactly. We need more facts and less speculation. Well, we're not going to get more facts because Epstein's dead. So, unfortunately, we have one of two things. One, we have to hope that some massive stuff breaks over the next few years, I guess. Three things. Two, that they somehow manage to appeal to continue the investigation, which I think is unlikely. And three, the third one would be, I guess, that he doesn't die in the first place. So, I don't know if whatever, but that's pretty much our three options. So, yeah, whatever. All right. So let's just get that out of the way. Second major news thing that's been going on that I don't think has gotten enough coverage, that I think has been glazed over way too much, is this Hong Kong protest. Like, despite what your particular flavor of freedom-loving human being you are, if you watch the show consistently, you have to understand that, like, these are basically the only people on planet Earth fighting for, like, actual freedom right now. That's a stretch. There are people all over the planet. But, as far as, like, oh, I'm fighting for my freedom, like, they are literally wrestling for control over their lives from commie China. And that they don't just need tots and prayers. There's tots and prayers all around the freaking world. They need actual support. I don't know of a means to support them. I wish I did. I wish I knew of a means of directly supporting them. So, in my lack of ability to do so, I will continue to talk about them because they don't get talked about enough either. A lot of people mention them, but I don't think people really understand the gravity of what is happening over there. This is important not only for Hong Kong, but for other branches of China or not branches of China, like Taiwan, places like that, where they are like these bastions of democracy inside of this absolutely totalitarian communist hellscape. So and China's not happy about either of those places. In fact, China still considers, if you didn't know this, they still consider Taiwan a part of China. Taiwan does not consider Taiwan a part of China, by the way. unlike Hong Kong, who does consider themselves still part of China. I don't know if that's just to save face or if they actually really do consider themselves that, but I'm pretty sure it's just to piss off China less. Um, but still, we have a very interesting situation on our hands, and one that could end in a lot of people getting hurt for honestly the right reasons, protecting their freedoms. But they shouldn't have to in the first place, which I guess makes them immediately wrong reasons. So they're doing the right thing. I hope they don't get hurt, is basically what I'm trying to say. And yeah, there's a variety of people running different groups inside of that movement, but they all are pretty much the same thing: pro democracy, pro Second Amendment, anti China, anti communist, anti police, anti authoritarian structures. And they have a chance to build something really beautiful out of this. There's also a good chance that this will get very, very, very bad. And like for example, they're talking about hosting a crowd or a rally on the 18th, which would be they're doing it today, or I'm assuming so. I'm assuming this is in Chinese time because that would make sense, right? They were talking about hosting a rally Sunday night, which would be today for China, or or it could also be tomorrow, depending on if they are doing the rally on Monday actually, and this is talking about U.S. Sunday. Don't know. Whatever. In a bid to show the city's leaders that the protest movement remains defiant despite increasingly stark warnings from Beijing. The 10 weeks of demonstration have plunged the international finance hub into crisis, and communist ruled mainland China has taken an increasingly hardline tone, including labeling more violent protesters as terrorists. This is actually a little outdated. They said terrorists like the actual, basically their version of Homeland Security has just called the terrorists, just called them terrorists. That whole protest movement are now terrorists. It's if you're associated with it, you're associating with terrorists. So, yeah. I mean, and this has all been escalating. Everybody remembers Tuesday when they blocked off the airport and the violence that broke out during that. If most people have probably seen the video of the officer being assaulted by the crowd of people after he tackled the woman. It's I mean, it is a powder keg over there. There's a teachers rally. Teachers are on strike too, thousands of them. So I mean, this is tearing Hong Kong apart, but for totally the right reasons. So I hope that this is one of those little things where we talk about like spreading the word. Like everybody expects typical like libertarian stuff from most of us, I'm assuming, on Facebook or something like that. Share something about Hong Kong. And I'm not talking thoughts and prayers. Educate people. Be like, hey, this is happening. I know the news doesn't care and they talk about it like once a week and maybe for a few hours in a news cycle because it doesn't really pull. Talk about these things. These things matter. This is important. And I hope that people can, yeah, I hope that people can look at this and feel inspired to even in Hong Kong's China, there is this underlying love of the idea of liberty, whether they choose democracy, which is the least free kind of freedom, but hey, we'll take it, I guess. It's better than communism. Um, but yeah, it's this is all this all started over the whole extradition treaty that they wanted with Hong Kong to deport people to China, but that's not going to happen. Either that before that happens, a lot of people are going to die. Let me just put it that way. And one more thing about China that I thought was crazy. This in Toronto, Canada, these people were trying to put together a pro Hong Kong support, a large Chinese majority of people were trying to put together this protest, basically, or it's more of like a rally, but they called it a protest. And they're protesting China and Z trying to basically take over Hong Kong's autonomy at this point. So just to read this real quick, because I thought this was just crazy when I saw it. A few hundred people gathered outside the old city hall on Saturday afternoon with the intention of marching around the Eaton Center in solidarity with protesters in Hong Kong, who are in their 10th week of advocating for an extradition bill being withdrawn. The bill would allow residents to be extradited. Okay, yeah, we already know all this. Already talked about it. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, so this is one of the ladies from Toronto, Gloria Fung, one of the organizers of the march and president of the Canada-Hong Kong Link, said that when they arrived at the City Hall, they were met by members of a pro-China-backed group who was chanting "One China" and was blocking protesters from leaving the area. Despite their lack of a permit, police refused to defuse the crowd, and they continued to harass, block, and annoy the group. That is insane, guys. That is crazy. A pro-China backed group in Canada. Okay. All right. Richard says that's where capitalism succeeds. In America, they don't have lasting protests because they're conditioned to sit in front of a TV with the air on. Protests take sacrifice, and very few Americans will. I think it has to get bad enough, Richard. I've talked about this before, but I think a lot of people will sit down and roll over and take a lot until there's like trigger points. And I think if you get an American off of his couch to go out and protest and fight for something, you might have messed up, honestly. Like, for example, I say if they ban AR-15s just federally, they're just done. Just no more AR-15s. No transfer, sale. We're coming to get them. Yeah, that is crazy. That'll be something that gets people out of their doors or keeps them in their doors for as long as possible. So, yeah. I'm for AR-15, but that won't happen. Well, we'll see, I guess. At this rate, we'll see. For some, remember Boston, yeah. Yeah, but that's Boston, though. Come on, let's get real. They're not as tough as they say they are. So, talking about AR-15s, Beto O'Rourke actually was visiting Arkansas doing, his rallies and whatnot, talking to people, trying to have a legitimate chance of becoming president, which I think is funny. And I think there's a couple Democrats that have a really good chance of becoming president. He's not one of them. White House hopeful Beto O'Rourke visits Arkansas Gun Show on Saturday to talk with firearms owners and vendors about solutions to tackle gun violence, which basically means lecture gun owners on why they're bad people, is what this came down to. The visit comes one day after O'Rourke released a plan proposing a state of gun control reforms, and 2 weeks after the mass shooting in El Paso, where Beto O'Rourke was representative. So Richard here is talking about Boston still. They locked the whole city down and kicked people out of their homes to do searches for the bomber. How many of them stood against it with their AR-15s? So, Richard, the issue is that yes, of course they don't have the right to do so. I mean, they have to have a warrant and stuff like that. Most of them didn't. They would have been completely right to choose not to. But either A, people didn't know their rights and complied out of like fear or something. B, they refused and the police kicked their door in which case that's a constitutional level violation. And then, yeah, they said you have no rights and we will go where we want. Yeah. Well, okay. So maybe in Boston they said, okay, well then you guys could just come in, don't hurt me, please. But I just don't see something like that happening where I'm from, to be completely honest with you. I come from, do you have a freaking warrant territory? And if you don't, get off my property. So They can do it anywhere. But yeah, but they can't though. But they can. Yes, the strong man can push open any door, right? But they can't. So you're not going to win against the police force. Okay, that's fine. Defend yourself. I mean, you can hold that opinion. You can think that you'll never win against the police and cave to them, but don't, defend yourself in whatever possibility. They don't let you group and then die. Defend your rights, man. That's what I'll say to that. I mean, if it honestly, like, if this is how you feel about this issue specifically, then I mean, why even, I mean, you might as well just go ahead and turn your guns in already, because obviously you don't have the rights to defend yourself. So or your rights, because if you're just going to get killed and die anyways, and that's rights are an illusion. Okay, we're going to go ahead and press. We've talked about this before, so Trump suspends CNN analysis. Damn, got my head all scrambled. Trump suspends the CNN analysis. Fuck, man. Analysts' credentials and another shot at the press. The Trump administration has fired another shot in its war at the U.S. press, suspending the credential of Brian Karem, White House correspondent for Playboy and an analyst for CNN. The 30-day revocation was announced on Friday and echoes hugely controversial actions taken against CNN's Jim Acosta in November 2018. Acosta, a frequent irritation to Trump, has had his pass taken away from the administration, claimed he used inappropriate force in resisting an intern's attempts to take a microphone from him during a news conference. Karem had his pass suspended after an altercation with Breitbart reporter and former Trump aide Sebastian Gorka in the White House Rose Garden in July around a social media summit convened by Trump and attended by some of the most ardent supporters. Both men attracted criticism for their behavior. There's pushing, shoving, blah, 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 all that crazy nonsense. And he's totally biased, first off. Like, he hasn't revoked the credentials from a single right-wing news outlet, which, if you're going to do something like this, you need to be fair about it, at least, and hold people to the same standards. So I think it's horseshit that he continuously targets left-leaning news reporters. Now, think whatever you want about media. I think most media on the left and the right is garbage. For example, this story is from The Guardian. They're trash. 99% of the time, they're trash. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's trying to like hedge his own bets or if he just doesn't care at this point and he's just trying to, I don't know, run away with his power to do things like this. But I mean, this is like, so Jim Acosta was before this, but there was actually more people involved in like, being told like you just can't come in, and not necessarily having their stuff revoked. Which I'm not going to claim that these are First Amendment issues. They're really not First Amendment issues. They can send another person. That's not the problem. It would be a First Amendment issue if like an entire news website wasn't allowed in for some esoteric reason. This, however, I will say is just petty. Like most things that Donald Trump does, can we just be honest here? It's petty, extremely petty. So, yeah, that's a thing. I felt like bringing that up. Oh, I never finished talking about Beto O'Rourke, did I? Oh well, whatever. We'll just wrap this one up. Basically, he went to this gun show. He was talking to all these gun owners and asking questions like, "Oh, what do you guys think we should do?" and listening to gun owners. Well, there's a Facebook post that came out from somebody who was there with Beto O'Rourke at the gun show, and he was like, apparently he was at least feigning to be a little bit receptive to what they were saying and like, "Oh, okay, this is wow, that's crazy, I never thought about that, blah, 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 blah." Well, then if you go on his Twitter and Facebook from when he was at that event, it's literally just like, "Oh, I'm going to ban this. I'm going to ban that. Look at this. I'm banning this gun. I'm going to ban that gun." Also, his people took pictures with individuals who were trying to have a legitimate gun conversation with him and put commentary that was very inappropriate for what he was doing. Yeah, so his quote, his quote unquote famous quote, I'm confident that if at this moment we do not wake up from this threat, then we as a country will die in our sleep. Just rip my bleeding heart out, why don't you? Yeah, obviously, like these, that's a completely preposterous idea. We talked about this in the NAP episode, which was last week. But you have 3 rights, and your right is to defend them. Your ability to defend them is intrinsic. So stand on a table or stand for nothing. Yeah. And this is an interesting. This is a interesting thing, kind of talking about what's going on with that NAP episode last week. And it says a jury found a grocery store clerk of killing a 17-year-old Memphis boy who ran out of the store with a beer he didn't pay for in a case that has. Oh, sorry. Yeah, they found him guilty of killing a 17-year-old after killing a 17-year-old boy who ran out of his store with a beer, $2 worth of beer or whatever, in a case that has sparked protests. Anwar Ghazi was convicted of second-degree murder after a 4-day trial. 4-day trial deliberating over this. The defendant took it upon himself to be the judge, jury, and executioner over a $2 beer, prosecutor said. So this right here is like peak bullshittery. Peak playing on the heartstrings. So I don't even remember what state this was already. I'm already so pissed off. Memphis, Tennessee. Okay. If someone comes into your store and steals a bag of chips, I'm not saying you have to kill them over it, but I'm saying protect your property, maintain consistency. At least, maybe he thought he took more of it. Maybe he thought he took more. Do you not have the right to defend your property with up to lethal force? That is excessive. Sure, you can. I don't know if it's excessive. Are you sure the only thing he took was a beer? Really? Pull a gun and hold them or shoot them in the foot? You can't shoot people in the foot. That's maiming them. That is consistently one of the ways to get yourself in a lot of fucking trouble. You can't do that. Pulling a gun out and holding them, maybe, but if they're already out the door, or if they're about to. First off, let's put it this way. Kid shouldn't have stolen the fucking beer to begin with. That's stupid. Stealing a $2 beer is stupid. If you can't shoot without killing, you shouldn't have to kill. What happens when you kill them? They die. I mean, I don't understand. Like, if you're in a situation where you can hold somebody at gunpoint, then you're defending one of your 3 rights. Life, liberty, property. In this case, it's property. Property rights are one of the most fundamental rights, the baseline for pretty much everything that we go off of when we talk about ethics and politics on this show. Property rights are king in most cases. So when somebody steals from you, you have a right to defend your property. They made the choice to steal from you. I agree, but that's not how it works. That is okay. I don't care what the legal system is. I care about what the ethical answer to this is, and not moral answer, but the ethically consistent answer is, right? So you may think it's immoral to shoot this kid, and that's fine. That's up to you to decide that. But what is ethically consistent is that they found him guilty of second-degree murder, and I'm saying that's horse shit. That's what I'm saying. I don't care what this legal system, this jury of his peers decided based off of this. I'm just trying to keep people on this side of the glass. Not when it means that you can't defend your property. Like, what are you just supposed to? You're supposed to let the dude run out your door? I mean, whatever. Family mourns. Why did this happen to my son? Because your son stole shit. That's why it happened. So this is the kind of stuff right here where, like, Yeah, I mean, Nightmare's right. Don't take people's shit. I don't understand why this is even a controversial topic. Like, is it a tragedy? Is it a tragedy? Sure, 100%. Um, I could see that. A 17-year-old kid made a horrible decision and died for it. Tragedy. I'm sure he wouldn't do it if he knew he was going to go in there and die over a $2 bill. Sure he wouldn't. But that just shows you that there was there was no reason for him to be doing this in the first place. And somewhere along the line, somebody failed this kid. And I don't think it was the man defending his property. So let me put it this way. If someone kicks your door in and steals a $2 soda from your fridge and runs away, are you going to like ask him how much the value of the product he stole was before you shoot him? I mean, that's extremely analogous actually. That's that man's business. He's the owner, I'm pretty sure. Oh, I'm sorry. He's one of the managers. He doesn't own the building. But it says here that the owner supports his actions and helps pay for his court fees. When I was 17, I went to jail for a 99-cent air freshener. Did you steal it? Because that's pretty stupid of you, and you should have at least gone to jail for stealing it because that's property. What someone transgresses you, it's up to you to morally and tensely judge a moral outcome. And I'm glad I wasn't shot. I'm glad you weren't shot too, because that would have been really shitty. But what is super important to understand here is that the value doesn't matter. What matters, I mean, it does to an extent, okay? I'm probably not going to shoot a kid over a $2 bill, but if we're to maintain ethical consistency here, someone's stealing your property, like, you don't have all this information, right? So we talk about this all the time when we talk about interjecting inside of a NAP violation. So you see someone getting the shit beat out of them, and you go over and, start beating the shit out of the other guy. Well, it turns out that guy was beating up someone who tried to rob him, and now you're beating up the guy who's getting robbed. So what's the value of a human life, even a misguided one? I'm probably the wrong person to ask this question because I believe it's a moving scale, and the more stupid stuff you do, like violate people's rights, the lower that gets in comparison to the other thing. I see this as a poverty issue causing gun issues. Sure, maybe. Maybe it was a poverty issue, but I have a very hard time believing they couldn't scrap up $2 washing windows or something. Now, granted, they're 17. They couldn't buy the beer to begin with. I wish I could say I didn't agree. It's a scale. I mean, sure, nobody likes to say that, right? I get shit all the time when I say that. But I really just don't believe that all people at all times are perfectly equal to each other in as far as like value. I think that's a preposterous statement built off of everybody's a winner mentalities. How can we help people in poverty? I agree that it is, but at some point we have to grow. I don't quite know what you mean by that. I don't know what you're asserting there. But to answer Nightmare here, how can we help people in poverty? There's a large number of ways you can do so by, first off, helping out in your communities. Second off, relieving a tax burden. The people below the poverty line usually don't pay income taxes, which is fine. But, those people who make minimum wage, a lot of them are still paying income taxes on their pay, which I think is ridiculous. The government doesn't need your $3,000 a year. That's total horseshit. And decreasing costs on businesses would allow people to grow more in wages, and that helps a lot. So my neighbor tried to attack me thinking I was trespassing. He was in my house. I didn't hurt him, and he listened to my words. No one was hurt, and we both went home. Not all things come to violence. Not all things have to come to violence. But the NAP is very clear about this. When your rights are violated, you get to defend them. Now, do you think that a $2 beer is worth shooting a kid over? Okay, how do you know it was just $2? All right, how do you know it was just a $2 beer? What's the line? Do you just not defend your property? Do you go chase after them? Do you what do you do? Do you call the cops? I mean, they'll probably die anyways. This kid was African American. The cops will just shoot him. So, oh, he's got a gun. Actually, it's a $2 beer. If it was the cops, the guy would have, and they shot him, the cop would be free. How about that? Think about it that way. You get to defend them without using excessive force. I think given the information that he had, I might have done the same thing. Yeah. Liberty Late Night. I feared for my life, If someone comes into my store, steals shit, and runs, I don't know if I'd shoot him. I really don't know if I'd shoot him. But I have a very hard time saying that someone who did is wrong, and wrong enough to be charged for second-degree murder. Maybe manslaughter at the most. At the most, you should get manslaughter. Like, okay, you went over the line, but he did violate your rights, and none of this would have happened if he didn't steal your property. So, is this really your fault? Is this really your fault? So, an important thing about the non-aggression principle, though, is that you have to convince your peers that what you did was appropriate. Obviously, he failed to do so. Because, well, the idea is that what stops a Hatfield and McCoy style situation, that's that you have an appropriate enough justification. So if you say the kid stole my stuff and I shot him, and you have a majority of people who agree that, all right, we're not going to lynch you over this, then as a community you can do that. But bases don't steal from people. Yeah, I mean, it's part of growing up. Should he have had a more stable upbringing? Would it have occurred? I wouldn't shoot them. His face is on camera, and he's probably stupid enough to come back like nothing happened. Nothing in the store is worth killing someone unless they're threatening the cashier. All right, so what's the Let's make the analogy again one more time because I want to hear your opinion on this. So someone comes into your home, your property. Let's say you even invited them there, right? And then you see them pick up a few things and run out the door, right? Or start running to the door. And you're like, oh my God, this guy's stealing from me. You got your whatever on your hip or it's right in front of you, whatever situation you want to craft for this. What do you do? Do you chase after them? Do you shoot them? Do you, whatever Richard said, shoot him in the foot, which I think is a terrible idea. You shoot to kill. If you shoot someone in the foot, you're just asking to get in so much trouble. Do you tackle them? Do you call the cops? I already made the argument that he's probably going to die if you call the cops anyways. Had someone try to steal my bike. I confronted him. He apologized and hasn't tried to steal from me since. A store during business hours, yeah. It's considered public, sure. Okay, so you invited this man into your front door. He's now allowed on your premises. That's why I said that in this scenario. He's not trespassing on your property. You allowed him in. Also, it's not considered public. It's considered open to the public. And there's some nuance there that is extremely important, which is why police can't come conduct traffic violation stuff on your property, but him being killed for this thing is awful. And yes, kids do the dumbest things. I did dumb stuff as a kid too. Here, a kid stole another kid's bike. The kid confronted him and got shot and died. Yeah, I mean, you gonna take that risk? Honestly? How do you know he's just a 17-year-old kid? Are you that good at measuring ages? I'm not. I mean, people say I look super young compared to how old I am. I don't know. I'm just really not. So, I mean, I also don't trust people farther than I can throw them. So, am I going to really go confront someone who just stole from me? Is that, we were talking about kids doing dumb things. Are people going to, is this something that I have to worry about? Am I going to get stabbed if I go confront this person? Yeah. Am I 14? Actually, I'm a 9-year-old. Okay. We need reacts. This is I didn't necessarily expect to go diving back into the nap, but this is a story. I don't know if anybody was here when I was setting up in the beginning. This is the one that I was like, ooh, that is spicy. And this is pretty much like, apparently, that this is causing a lot of counter protests in Memphis from people who say that, this is like basic property rights. And the really crazy about this thing is that you have protests that say things like, this is the person from the BLM, Black Lives Matter movement. If we don't value black lives and believe that Dorian's life is worth far more than an allegedly stolen beer, then we're not authentically honoring my father, which... Okay, and then there's another protest. The counter protest is from gun rights and civil rights activists, not civil rights activists, sorry, gun right and property right activists, who said it shouldn't have had to happen like that. But when somebody violates your property, someone comes in, steals your stuff, they made that choice. That choice is theirs. It's up to you to defend it. I'm like, yeah, it sucks that the kid died. It sucks. It's terrible. Very sorry. Shit. Sucks. Don't know what to tell you. Actually, I do know what to tell you. That sucks. Very sorry that he made that decision. But we need a higher minimum wage and jobs programs offering a way out. Do we need a higher minimum wage, though? Is that actually the solution? Because historically, raising the minimum wage does two things. One, it lowers employment for lower wage workers. And two, over time, costs rise to meet it. So when you raise the baseline, everything goes up. This is proof. Historically speaking, you can look at this effect in Europe. You can look at this effect in the U.S. through the last time we raised minimum wages and we were keeping more accurate data of what that recourse is. It's a Band-Aid fix to a cut jugular problem. How do you solve poverty? That didn't happen in New York or Seattle because the effects haven't come through enough yet. And also, New York and Seattle are localized examples, right? You're talking about, this isn't true. Okay, let me tell you. You're talking about examples of cities that are primarily based in services, right? You're talking about Seattle, places like that are primarily based in services. So these are things where you don't necessarily have overhead costs that are also being driven up by what you are doing is you're providing the service. You can't afford rent in any state with minimum wage. I agree. Minimum wage is a very, very low bar. I 100% agree with that. I think if you're an adult with any sort of skill set, you should be paid more than that. Band-Aid fix to a cut jugular is pretty much the best way of looking at it. And you can do it in some of these more localized areas that are based on... Well, see, but then if you say it needs to be rated federally across the board, your father made minimum wage and it paid your rent. My father didn't make minimum wage, but other people's did, sure. Also, an average income family, one single income family could pay for their kids to go through college, their mortgage, and buy a new car in a year. I mean, like, obviously, wages are not keeping pace, and we have to figure out why that is. There's a lot of, I've talked about this in the past, there's a lot of different reasons why this is. Some of it is corporate withholdings. However, what I will say is that it is proof, this is fact, that once you nationalize a minimum wage and you start taking those minimum wage jobs from $7.25 to like doubling $15 an hour on things like manufacturing, on things like agriculture, on things like products, actual products. Services are easy to increase wages on because you have low overheads, and it's very easy to not see the impact of this, right? It's easy for bigger businesses to accept and adopt things like this, like Amazon and places like that. They just sort of absorb the costs. But once you start talking about using or raising a minimum wage in things that are already so heavily subsidized and don't make any money because they can't come up with efficient ways to do their processes, like farming, like cattle, actually cattle's doing pretty well right now, but offering products, manufacturing, and you start saying like your guy who's working $9 an hour to pull a lever is now getting paid $15 an hour, and you have 30 to 40 of them on your factory floor. Like that's going to directly result in an increase in that price of that product, because that product is valued and is sold at a level to where it is offsetting. So it's a difference between expenses versus revenue to create profits. And if you want a certain profit margin and your expenses increase, you have to increase revenue. So you have to sell that product at a higher level. So basically what I'm saying is if you offer a service and your service is already just based off of it being off of a service, you're really, your profit margins are huge. Because say you offer back massages, how much does it cost a place to give a back massage? Electricity and however much it costs them to pay that employee for 30 minutes. Okay, that's basically nothing compared to when you start looking at products, where it's like, how much does it cost to make this product? We have all these people, all these machines, all of this stuff. Less would buy, and then they would lower the price. I don't think they would. I mean, Apple's selling less phones than ever, but they sell them off of like a premium now. I don't know, man. I don't know if that's true, though. Have you ever heard of Ben & Jerry's ice cream? Yes, I've heard of Ben & Jerry's. I know exactly what you're going to say, too. I just, like, there's nothing statistically, there's nothing historically to show that what you're saying is true. People will still buy milk. When the price of milk goes up, people still buy milk. People still buy bread, even when bread is more expensive. Why does it work on ice cream and not a car? Because ice cream is a luxury. Nobody needs an ice cream. Nobody needs ice cream. Ice cream is a posh expense if you're talking about low income places. Give you a break? No, I just gave you an entire breakdown of why what you're saying isn't true. And I mean, you can talk about Ben & Jerry's, but like, I literally, like, I just broke it down. We want ice cream, not need. And that has a huge effect on what market forces apply to it. I'm not flustered. I'm just like, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty clearly communicating. A luxury can pay above 15 an hour. But if, sure, okay, sure. Ben & Jerry's can pay $15 an hour. Cool. All right, great. What about things that are these necessities, like your breads, like your milks, like your foods, like your cars? Ice cream's a luxury. Sure. Okay, $15 an hour for ice cream. All right, if Ben & Jerry's, does their 15, if they pay $40 an hour and they want to sell $20 buckets of ice cream, that's on them. They can do that. Whatever. I don't care. Do it. I like Bluebell anyways. But whenever, like, I'm not talking about mom and pop either. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. Ben & Jerry's does it. Cool. They pay $40 an hour. I will still probably buy Bluebell because I prefer their ice cream. But if they want to make that premium ice cream and they want to charge their employees $40 an hour to make that perfect ice cream, and you pay $60 for a container of it or $20 or whatever, then sure. Whatever, man. You are allowed to do that. That's fine. But what I am saying is that if you raise $7.25, right? You have $7.25 is what the minimum wage is. And let's pretend you're in a state that doesn't pay anything above that. $7.25 is your minimum wage for your state and federally. You go and you work at a dairy farm, for example, and you have X number of employees who have to pay X amount of money so that they can do their work. And if you're paying a dairy farmer minimum wage, you're literally robbing them at this point. I'm pretty sure the unions will not allow that to happen. But let's just play pretend, okay? Let's just play pretend. Because there are plenty of workers who are in that $10 to $12 range who in places like Houston can afford rent and can make it, but they're getting boosted to 15. And also now you have this interesting issue of where, like, $15 where I'm from is a pretty decent amount of money. Like, $15 an hour you can get by on and have a few fun things and have a small apartment and maybe pay for a car payment and insurance and all that stuff. Most likely. Maybe not health insurance with all of that, but if you cut out some of the frills, probably. And $15 an hour for like a kid is great money. I would have killed to be paid that kind of money. So if and still pays above $15 an hour and still makes a profit, and they just are not greedy. So if we put something like this through, you have to think about also what that's going to do for people. Like, I know people who are like managers of places who get paid like $16 an hour, 17 roughly. Um, what are you gonna? I mean, are you gonna kick them, or are you just gonna keep them at like the 17 because you need to maintain profit margins because you're a business, right? And are you just gonna raise everybody up to 15? 15, 16, 17, I guess, maybe. I mean, what is there like a ratio here? Are you really still only worth this much? Is there a competitive value between the two of you? I ran a Pizza Hut for 20 years. I love Pizza Hut. It was probably one of your big customers. I also would hate the idea of opening up a franchise, to be completely honest with you. Big companies write the legislation to drown out the smaller competition. I understand a profit and a loss. Yeah, I'm not suggesting you don't understand what profit and loss is, but sometimes you have to reframe the way you're looking at a conversation like this and the easiest way to do that is just start from square one. I'm not trying to suggest that you're like dumb or something. I think this is a good conversation. I just feel like we have to know how to frame what we're talking about. So I usually start with the baseline and move our way up. I made so much money as a manager of pizza. I could have doubled everyone's wages, still been profitable. Pizza Hut is to pizza as McDonald's is to burgers. No, Domino's is to pizza as McDonald's is to burgers. Pizza Hut's bomb, and you can fight me over that. Or how about Little Caesars? Even better, as far as the comparison. I used to work for Shaw's, New England grocery chain, part timers, no matter what you did, baggers. I made 11 an hour. I will find you. I made my first job ever. I was 16 and I made $8.50 an hour operating rides at a amusement park all year, and I could get overtime if I wanted it. A couple times I did. Worked a couple 50-hour weeks. That was nice, getting that time and a half. Um, would I have liked to make $10? Sure. I was just happy to not be making minimum wage, honestly. I don't know of many people who are working minimum wage because 850 is not a lot of money either. But especially nowadays, it's really not a lot of money. But there was a track to get paid more. You worked there, you became a supervisor, and that was a raise. It was $10. And you continued to work there, and you became a manager, and that was $15. And then you could become one of the big managers, like one of the heads of the area. And there were people who I saw take that track. It was a thing that you could do. Had a very high turnover rate there, so you were able to move your way in and out of positions based off of, and they could feel free to hire and promote based off of a sort of pseudo egalitarian way. So it's true though. I mean, there are people out there still making 725. But like, okay, here's a great example. My parents' business, my mom opened up a vinyl store. They sell vinyl and stuff like that. They pay like $12 an hour, and that's because she's a bleeding heart. And my dad hated the idea of that because they come from two very different schools of thought. Now, granted, they're still doing fine. They make plenty of money. They don't have that many employees. So, I was also a waitress at $2 an hour. That's rough. Yeah. So they pay their employees like $12 an hour, I think, and so they're doing work that is honestly super mundane, probably not worth $12 an hour. Like, I have whatever. I mean, that's her decision, is her business. But I'm saying if you cannot pay your employees above a wage, they can support themselves. You do not deserve to have a franchise of 100 stores. What are your thoughts on waitresses? Tips are the pay for him or her? I mean, it's a service. Okay, so here's the thing. If they get rid of the different pays, I think they should still be able to be tipped. I like the idea of tipping because I think it's like, oh, it's almost like making a commission, but I don't think that you should be dependent on tips. It is a voluntary agreement though. It is a voluntary agreement. So the reason that most waitresses and waiters make more overall than minimum wage, unless you live in a really bad town, I guess, um, is the fact that this tipping is acceptable. But like if you try to tip a cashier at Target, that's illegal. They cannot take your money. They can't, especially on business hours. Like they can be fired for that and there's nothing they can do about it. Like that's big no-no, right? When in my opinion, if you're an amazing human being and I want to give you $5, you can say no, I don't want your $5, but you can't say like, oh no, I can't. That's against the law, blah blah blah. Like or against company, whatever. Like that kind of shit's horse shit. So, like for an example, I had this idea of like starting up a spa, and you would get you as an employee would get a percentage of every sale. Basically, is the way it would work out, 15%. But if someone asked me, hey, is this well, then is this just going to replace tipping? And I said, no, I don't have anything against tipping. If someone wants to tip them, then they can continue to tip them. This has nothing to do with between the customer and the employee. This is between me and the employee, this 15%. So that's not a fair argument. She was hired to waste an hour of her time, and the company will only pay her $2.85, and she must make the difference to minimum wage, and if not, she won't have hours. What? I mean, like, what are you? What am I missing here? That's not a fair argument. Okay, so I was talking about how I think there. I don't think there's anything wrong with tipping ethically. There's nothing wrong with tipping ethically, and I'm not saying it's a perfect system. You can pay. I 100% believe that you can afford to pay a worker $7.25, provide good food, and let them get tips. That's not a problem to me. I don't. I think it's preposterous if you say you have to pay them like what is it, $5 and something cents. Like that's sure they are full of shit. But once you start talking like we have to double their wages and then we'll just ban tips, like I'm like no, but I like tips. Tips tips should be stacked on top of that. Like I don't care how much your employer pays you. That's not why I tip. I tip the same percentages roughly, unless they really suck or are amazing, when I go to a fancy restaurant than I do when I go to Olive Garden. I'm not saying like 10% at Olive Garden because, they pay their people lower and so they need a lower percentage. Then do you tip the cook? Well, the cook, you could. I could if I wanted to go back into the kitchen and tip the cook, sure. Do you tip the cook? I don't tip the cook. The cook typically gets paid enough. Or why not say that? Why not say, this is for you, give this to the chef? Why not? You've tipped the cook. If it was fucking amazing, I might. I've asked to see the chef before. Well, why would I give anything to the manager? I know the manager is getting their cut. What the manager should be caring about is that their people get their cut. So it is about as much as the company pays? No, I said that as a joke. You don't tip the cook because first off, it's not something I've ever really even thought about. The store manager does, the shifts do not. Well, they're still managing their people. And I get that. I understand that argument you're making because they make minimum wage. What shift managers have you seen making minimum wage? Like maybe when you were in that business they were, but I don't know of any people who are working like shift managers that are making minimum wage. I think that might be slightly anecdotal there, my friend. You tip the waiter because they don't. Oh, cooks? Cooks are making minimum wage? At a Pizza Hut, I could see that. At a Pizza Hut, I could see that. Something like that. Maybe at an Olive Garden, but I don't know. You start getting beyond that. Leave that place. Yeah, there's plenty of other places that you can get jobs at for cooking. There was a place in, and granted, I think the times are adapting as well. So wage stagnation was extremely bad in the late 2000s, early 2010s. It was horrible. And some people attribute that to the recession, so they weren't giving out like cost of living adjustments or, biannual raises, which were things that people just kind of expected before that. Especially during like the 90s, which was one of the strongest economies in the history of the United States of America. Like, forget what the stock prices say. We're really not in that great of an economy for jobs, honestly. We have less unemployed people, but that's not a good sign. Unemployment is does not have to be a bad thing, all right? This is an important thing to understand about economics, is that unemployment most of the time, if you remove the retired population or the people too young to work from that pool, unemployment is most of the time transitioning between labor forces, which is what you need. You need shifting in markets. And the lower and lower the unemployment rate gets, that means two things. One, people aren't leaving their jobs, which is not very good. It leads to market stagnation. And two, it means there isn't enough flexibility in the market to facilitate that. So I know Mary's issue, even though she didn't say Pizza Hut. Minimum wage and food service, leave that place unless you have some kind of mental deficiency. Voluntary unemployment is okay. Involuntary is not okay. I mean, if you get fired, that's involuntary employment. And you can think it's not okay, but there isn't really much of anything you can do about it. That business has a right to fire you if they think you suck or want to cut costs or something like that. That sucks. I'm sorry you lost your job. Job security is an important reason to pick up a job, but it's not okay for your family. I didn't say, like, what are we talking? Again, we're talking morals versus ethics here. Like, is it going to make me feel sad if I fire somebody? Sure, but like, what? Okay, so am I not supposed to fire somebody who sucks at their job because, man, their family is going to be so sad? Or am I supposed to like let my business tank into the ground because I need to cut costs and I need to cut employees? I mean, okay, see, that's the perspective that I'm looking at this from, because those are the people with the power in this conversation, right? Like, the employee is like, whether people like to admit it or not, are at the whim of their employers. That is part of signing a contract with their employers. You will let me work here, not I have a right to work here, you know? No, you fire them, and the problem is there isn't anywhere to pull yourself up from. Yeah, because we're in a shit job market right now, which is what I'm getting at, is that we aren't creating new jobs as fast as we should. We can't fill some jobs as fast as we need to. But unfortunately, we have issues now where we have way more lawyers in the US than we ever needed. We have so many lawyers in the US. It's quickly becoming one of the top 10. I think it's going to be on track to be one of the top 10 highest unemployed professions, because there are droves of people graduating law school who cannot get jobs as lawyers, even after they pass their bar. If you want to go to school to be a lawyer right now, you need to reconsider, because we have lawyers for days now. And that's half the reason why being a lawyer is less profitable than it has been in a long time too. Because they can't do things like, hey, how about, you take $3,000 retainer and then I'll get to it later, I'm more worried about the 55-year-old woman in the McDonald's drive-thru. See, when you get that old, it really is like you're pretty much too late to start anything. I mean, you could pick up a trade. There's nothing stopping a 55-year-old woman from picking up a trade, besides maybe like socio barriers, but no amount of legislation is really going to change that. That comes from the people. The one that has 2 kids and is doing it alone, putting her kids through school. Yeah, my mom did that. It sucks. Really. It does. It's bad. It's bad feels. What's even worse is when you can't afford food and then you go get welfare and then you can't get it because you have a car that runs, because you have to go to work, right? But the family right next to you can, with all of their luxuries and amenities. So I'm saying, like, if don't even get me started on how broken the welfare system is. So schools suck. 90% of the time, there are better options. I'd say 50% of the time. I think college still has a place. A degree still has value. It does. But not all degrees have the extreme value that people are promised. So, learn underwater welding. My dad did that for the first couple years of his days. 100% you'll get a good job with good pay and low student loans. Underwater welding is, yeah, that's what my dad did for a couple years. He made some pretty good money doing that and then almost died, so he quit. No degree, welcome to minimum wage unless you luck out. That's not true, Richard. That's not. Most places are not paying minimum wage in any sort of healthy area. Trades are dying, sort of. They're getting better. People are getting more efficient at processes, Mary, which helps. Strider, just be willing to work. It isn't that easy. It isn't that easy of just be willing to work. I do agree that there are barriers that are put in place that people have to overcome, but any barrier can be overcome. Any barrier. The 55-year-old woman working at McDonald's can pull herself out of it, but is it harder than, say, me to pull myself out of a situation like that? I would be okay with saying that. Well, minimum wage is not living wage. Yeah, sure, it's not living wage. It's not. Why does the minimum wage have to be living wage? Does it have to be living wage? Like, that's just the minimum. Like, you cannot pay your people below this. Does it have to be a living wage? I don't know. I've never really asked that side of the question. I've always just answered it assuming from the position that it needs to be. But does it even need to be? It's for teenagers living at home. I mean, that's what I was, and I still made more money than that. We got our AC fixed the other day. I told my oldest, see this right there, college isn't the only way. HVAC people make decent money. There should be no minimum wage. See, there's an argument to that. I think if we left the $7.25 minimum wage for forever, it pretty much wouldn't be a minimum wage at some point. With the way that inflation goes, in 20 years, $7.25 will be like trash compared to stuff today. Teenager argument is a fallacy. Yeah, there are plenty of adults making minimum wage, and that's sad. It really is. It really is. But is that their fault, or is that their employer's fault? That's my question. A living wage where it makes a big difference. Yeah, it is a lot easier to live off of something like $8.50, $9, $10 an hour in Houston than it is in California. 100%. You have to raise it to a living wage and tie it with inflation locking. Ooh. See, the inflation locking part, that sounds like punishing businesses for government. That really does right there. I don't know about that one. That seems like we're getting out there a little bit, honestly. I have to think about that. That needs some thinking. Well, first off, I think that your employer should be responsible for you they should want to be responsible for your well-being, because a healthier employee, healthier work, it's all better. But I work as a mechanic. $21 an hour used to be really high, but now now that you can make 15 flipping burgers, why would I work my ass off when the government mandates a higher wage for lower skill? That's a fair point. That's what I was talking about earlier with the whole manager thing, is that if you put yourself in this situation to where you were paying these people $15 an hour, what do you pay your managers? Is a fast food manager worth $20 an hour? Is that really worth it? Honestly, like, that just makes me want to replace you all with robots. And so, like, okay, that's a great question too. So Andrew Yang is convinced that raising the minimum wage will start the automation end of the world, right? What do you think about that, Richard? Do you think that this is all going to lead to automation? Because I wasn't even thinking in that route, but I was just putting myself in that situation and thinking about having to pay I made $27 an hour, but I was there for a long time. Who wants to flip burgers for a profession? To be fair, somebody has to do it, right? I mean, now they don't have to be there forever. That's true. Um, if it could, then it already would have. It already is, though. The McDonald's in Korea has 2 people running it, and they're both cooks. 3 on busy days. All the cashiers are all touch screens. So, I mean, that's compared to my average McDonald's back in the States, I mean, as far as I'm aware, that's a pretty big cost cutting reduction. So then maybe you can afford to pay those people $15 an hour. Yeah. I understand that, but as soon as these companies have the chance, you will be self-checkout. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for them as a company, right? So I think it's important that really what we're touching on here is that you have to make yourself competitive in a market that it's being harder to be competitive. So if you've got people dropping out of school, people not pursuing trades, people just going straight to work, like you need to learn how to do something. Hmm. Yeah. I think that's one of the big takeaways from this too. Hmm. Yeah, sorry. I was just kind of like thinking about this for a second. You know, it's something that you hear often, but I don't think I've ever really like internalized. It's your responsibility as a potential employee to be as competitive as possible in the market. It is. I don't think I've ever heard. I mean, I'm sure this is an idea that's like, well, no shit, idiot. But I don't think I've ever said it out loud. He makes $4,000 an hour playing golf, and you sweat and not make enough to pay rent anywhere in the United States. Uh, I mean, CEOs do more than play golf. I think that's a pretty unfair thing right there. So imagine being the CEO of a failing business. Do you think they like you're the CEO of what's the name of that stupid place? Uh Kmart or something. Okay, somewhere that's getting replaced pretty quickly. Or like Sears, right? You are the CEO of Sears, and it is your responsibility to pay your shareholders back. And you can't make money to save your freaking life. Yeah, see, that's. Hmm. Yeah, see, that's what I was saying. Sears. Yeah, that's. I would hate to be the CEO of Sears. Um, oh, Aaron's here. I get what you're saying though. Like it can be more posh in other places, but I don't know. I can't. That's not for me. No, 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 no. It's not for me to decide whether or not someone makes $4,000 an hour playing golf. If they built it, if it sustains itself for them, good on them for making $4,000 an hour playing golf. I hope to emulate that someday. I want to be just like you. Um, How about GE going down the shitter? They've been going down the shitter for so long. You mean GM? Wait, are we talking GM or GE here? Those keys are on the other side of the keyboard. I don't think it was E, or I don't think it was M. GM is also back in the shithole too. So GE, yeah. General Electrics, their hybrid plane engine has just fallen through completely, which is not helping. They thought that they were going to have their hybrid plane engine design done by like 2022, and that is not the case. It is 100% not functional. So Sears did it on purpose, fleecing the company after 2 decades of not making profits. Yeah, of course they did. They cut everything down to their services, and some appliance places I think are still left. But all car companies will fall to Tesla. Well, Tesla has to make money first for that to happen. Um, and I don't. You talk about monoliths like Honda and Toyota falling apart. Like that's a pretty fucking big deal. I don't see it happening. Teslas are prohibitively expensive right now too, and it'll be another company that I'm pretty intimately aware of Tesla's financial standings, and they are trying very hard to stay in the green. I think 2019 was the first year that they consistently had more than a couple months. It's a tough business that they're running, and they also still get a shit ton of government subsidies, which does kind of piss me off. But what's going to happen is that they will continue to develop their technology and continue to deliver forefront electric vehicles. I'd love a Tesla. I think Tesla Model S's are super cool. I would love a Tesla Roadster also. But what I think is important is to note that they are opening up a niche that can be filled by these other companies, which is the economy electric car. The Prius isn't going anywhere, obviously. The hybrids are going to be around for a minute. They will keep on ticking. Ooh, $12K for a car. See, I'd pay a lot of money for a car if it was worth it. I'm weird like that though. But yeah, so you can get a used Prius for $12K if you want to save on gas and be eco-friendly and whatnot. And they're better than nothing, you know. Obviously, they consume less gas, produce less emissions. They're better. They own 4% of the market and continuously grow. That's great. That's awesome that they own 4% of the market. But I'm telling you, when you look at these, like the Japanese conglomerate that is the Toyota, Yamaha, Honda, Acura, well, technically that's a North America brand, but you know, Mitsubishi, Monolith, that is their hold on that side of the planet, you know, maybe 4% of the US market, but 4% of the global automotive market, is that what, or is it just the US? Tesla has already won what you know is based off of other companies fighting it. And that's good. I'm glad that Tesla is sparking competition inside of electric car manufacturing. But Strider, I don't know if that's true anymore, especially after they changed up the battery manufacturing, but I could be mistaken on that. Every day that they fight the Tesla, the oil companies make 10 billion, they spend 5 billion a year fighting. 10 billion a day. I was like, yeah, 10 billion a year? I'm not saying that Tesla is a bad company. I just think that it's in a strange place right now as a business. It's in a strange place. Also with like imports and stuff like that, it's difficult to get them. It is right now. It is a niche luxury item. It is a playground for. Oh, Tesla cars will go up in value. Now that's another claim and a half. That's essentially saying that Tesla's or some other company or anybody won't come out with improvements that will make these cars obsolete, because I find that super hard to believe. Battery technologies will continue to get better. Recharging abilities will continue to get better. Electric cars are going to become more available. Spots to charge them are going to be more available. Watch an episode of Now You Know. I think I'm a little more intimate to the goings on of the electric car market than a Now You Know episode. I'd like to think so anyways. Maybe that's boisterous of me to say that, but Tesla is laying superchargers everywhere. Yeah, they're trying to make it more easy to use, more convenient, instead of just like, I can charge at my home and that's it. You know, they want them to be. It does not sound like it to me, no offense. Well, I think you might be overselling your under just a little bit, dude. I'm not gonna lie, you might be overselling a little bit, because there isn't much. You're making an assumption that Tesla is just gonna run away for forever. That their cars, which are based on pretty much Generation 2 electrical car technology, is going to like increase in value more than for nostalgia's sake. I have a really hard time believing that. This is still just the beginning of electric cars. Like, that's like saying, like, this Model T Ford, like, yes, it will inevitably increase in value, but in the 1930s, Model Ts weren't worth shit. Well, 40s. Model Ts weren't worth shit. They were just getting thrown around everywhere because there were a billion of them, and they were all just, like, early technology. But when they came out, and if you kept one for 100 and whatever years, sure, yeah, they'd be worth crap tons of money. But that's, that's not the point. It will be able to make you money. I don't know about that one, man. I mean, that's fine if you. That's fine. I'm not. I don't really feel like debating that, but I just don't. I'm not saying it. Is basically what I'm saying. You better sales pitch. Tits and tires are net losses. Unless you buy something like a very old Bugatti, and then it continuously increases in price because there's like 4 of them and everybody wants it. The car has autopilot, and when you get home, you will say, "Go fetch a rider." Oh, that's what you're trying to say. Your car will Uber itself. Yeah, well, good luck letting the same government that's fighting for minimum wage laws let you have free taxi services or like $2 an hour taxi services. Good luck with that, my dude. Think about how you'd be undercutting the transportation industry and the yellow cabs with that. Think about it. You heartless monster, unemploying these hard workers with your automatic driving cars. It's all automated soon anyways. There we go. The inevitability of it all, right? We're all going to die anyways. Why pay anyone anything? I'm just kidding. I'm being facetious now. I'm pretty much ready to wrap up here, but just like Yang says, gotta get those Yang bucks, my dude. Let me see if I missed anything before I start wrapping up here. You laugh at my comment. I did read your comment. Oh my god, I was behind on the Minecraft series by PewDiePie, and I was watching that the other day, and I haven't audibly laughed to like a video, but I died the other day, man. I don't even remember what scene it was, but I was watching like one of the mid-20s episodes, and oh, it was when he was trying to use the healing potion on his pig, the splash potion, and he hits the pig and it kills him. Dude, I laughed so hard. Oh my god. Oh, jeez. I had fun. Good debate. Yeah, I think it was fun. I'll be honest, man. Like you're starting to lose me a little bit at the end there talking about Tesla. I'm not gonna lie to you, but it was fun. I enjoyed it, and no hard feelings either way. We need reacts. What do you mean we need to reacts? What do you mean? Pee pee poo poo rip. Yeah, Billy the confiscated frog. Dude, I know I'm a few weeks behind on that stuff, but man, did I really enjoy it. That episode was hilarious, and I'm caught up now, so. Time will show you. I guess so, man. We'll see if the market shows you. I want to laugh react. I don't think there's a way to laugh react on YouTube. I'm sorry. Very sorry about that. I guess I could like come up with a way for custom laugh reacts and say like, go to this link to laugh react. I don't know. Yeah. But I think that's it. Honestly though, I really need to go. I have to go get lunch and then do other things. So they're the best company to invest in. I do think they have a great future. I really do. You keep acting like they lose money. They're not as bad as they were to begin with. But if you took away government subsidies and their single holdings on patents and research and stuff like that, which will inevitably fade, they are not exactly in the most amazing situation. There's a reason that Tesla is, they invest their profits. So does Amazon, but nobody's saying Amazon's in a horrible situation. So, and they should be investing their profit. They're in an R&D based industries. If you took oil subsidies, no subsidies, in my opinion, 0 subsidies. There shouldn't be oil subsidies either. There shouldn't be education subsidies. These are all things that stagnate the market. The only reason General Motors exists right now is because of that. They get jacked for subsidies. Okay. It was fantastic talking to you guys. I hope you all continue to have a fantastic rest of your day. Unless anybody has anything last things before we go. But they also do SpaceX and Boring Co. And I love SpaceX from the bottom of my heart. I love Elon Musk. He's an amazing human being. No, Liberty Late Night. I'm not going to stay. I'm really not. 10 hours. No, we're not doing another one of those. You guys will leave me if I do another one of those. And if I do another one of those, it's going to have to be on like a Saturday or something so that I can drink while I do it. How about this? Oh, shit. This is episode 20, isn't it? Or is it 19? I don't know anymore. Huh. Maybe, you know what? Before I come back home, we'll do another 10-hour stream. But someone has to be here with me for 10 hours. All right? So, y'all take it easy. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Bye.